You're listening to episode 914 of the Father Bills Podcast. Welcome back. This week's episode will be offered by Father Anthony Wong Fan, my parochial vicar at Holy Trinity here in Beaverton, and his homily is entitled, We Are Family, given on the 6th Sunday in Ordinary Time, 2024.
So because of the title of the homily today, I was advised that I should just invite you to stand up and sing along with me, We Are Family. Does that sound good? Just kidding aside. This last Sunday, we heard of Father Bill preaching on the I am in our lives. And today, continuing on that same note, I would like to share a great news with you, that I am calling you to be here. However, I do have a question for you. Where are you from? Where are you from? I hope that this question does not cause you to have a surprise. But you can truly say, I'm from Beaverton, I'm from Hillsborough, I'm from Woodburn, or I am from Calcutta, I am from Manila, and for me, I am from Saigon. But why is it that I'm asking you that question? Where are you from? It is because God has called you to come together as a family, as a community of faith, to not only worship God, but also to share our love, our care, support for one another as members of the family of God. And today we heard from the readings of a contrast between the first reading and the gospel reading. In the first reading, we heard of those who are bearing on themselves the marks of leprosy, which they have to declare themselves unclean and have to dwell apart. Now imagine how difficult that is for a person to not only to have to declare himself or herself unclean, but also to have to isolate himself or herself from his or her family and community. However, we heard from the gospel reading of Jesus moving with compassion, touching and curing the leper of his leprosy. And why is that Jesus did so? It is because the healing of this leper aligns with the mission of Jesus, which is to reinstate the outcast back into the family and the community, back into the community of light and worship. So the healed person no longer has to declare himself unclean, but freely walks about in the community, receives and gives love, attention, and care and support from and to those around him. And so, another question for you, dear brother and sister in Christ. What is a similarity of leprosy in our time? Have you ever given it a thought? It is for half our mental well-being. For half it is our mental well-being. Because often when a person is mentally well, one experiences joy and contentment. But when one experiences anxiety, stress, mental health issue, it is difficult to imagine a person going around declaring himself or herself having a mental breakdown. Often it is unspoken. And so without letting out one's thoughts and feeling, the person starts to feel hopeless and discouraged, isolating him or herself from loved ones. And this can lead to tragic consequences. Not too long ago, I had to celebrate a funeral mass for one of my godsons who took his life due to mental illness, mental health issue. And it was quite tragic for his family, for his parents, to lose a beloved son. And as for me, his God's father, I realized that I felt as caring for him as I promised at his baptism when I answered, I am, to promising that I would be ready to help his parents in their duty to raise him in the faith. Not only in the faith, but to care, to love, and to support him. And so, dear brother and sister in Christ, when we are no longer mentally stable, not only our physical health and well-being, but also our spiritual health is affected. And so regarding on what can help us reducing the mental health issues and the isolations people face, Bishop Barron emphasizes that family and community is key, because he said, we as a species require companionship, we require friendship and relationship. And if we lose all that, we suffer. And so there are moments in our lives when we're experiencing joy and contentment. But there are also moments in our life when we experience stress, anxiety, mental issues, and breakdowns that can lead us to isolate ourselves. But we are a family, and God calls each one of us to love and to care for one another. And we are called to be the hands and the feet of Jesus. Avoiding offense, St. Paul says in the second reading today. So it's not enough just to be within our rights. Our deeds also must build others, people up, especially those in our midst who seem outcast. And so as a family, our concerns have to be not seeking our own benefit, but that of the many. And so how are we going to share our concerns with those experiencing mental health issues? That we are not walking away from them, but let Jesus' actions today remind us of the healing quantity of appropriate touch. Human beings are made to be in communion with each other in physical and embodied ways. And so we share our care, our love, and support when we hug, when we offer each other a pat on the back, or when those in our community are isolated and homebound, a visit is offered, or a deep, meaningful conversation we provide can bring solace to those who are experiencing grief. And so, dear brother and sister in Christ, when we bring care, love, and support to others, we help them to experience Christ's compassion and healing touch. Because after all, we are family.
Thank you again for listening to this episode of the Father Bills podcast. And a big thank you to Father Anthony for sharing his touching and also tragic story within the family. And it goes to show that we all need to be mindful of mental illness, and when we ourselves are struggling with our mental health, to seek out help and to be mindful of those who are struggling and to give them, as he was mentioning, appropriate touch, that is accompaniment as is appropriate. Of course, we always need to pray for those who struggle and for the medical personnel that are trying to help them as well. In the meantime, if you have any questions or comments, just go to my website, fatherbill.org, FRBILL.org, and there you can send me an email or look at my social media things, look at other podcasts or previous episodes of this podcast. If you like this particular podcast, you can like it or subscribe, depending on what kind of podcast reader or listening device you're listening to, or podcast listener. I know on YouTube that's kind of what they do there. So you can pick this up also on YouTube, iTunes, I believe also on the Google Play store. And of course, there's no cost to any of this. Just a ministry to share the gospel as we experience it as priests, as we preach to all of you and try to live it out ourselves. In the meantime, may God bless you and have a great week. Bye-bye.